At this very early stage, I will take the model over into my external application in which it's going to be rigged in. In my particular case, it's the Foundry Modo 901. There is a vast scale difference between Modo and ZBrush. So what I do is I make sure that I've got the scale right at very early stages. By doing this, you're going to avoid a bloating problem with subdivisional history within ZBrush. You notice to the right hand side that in my geometry tab I've got no subdivisional history there. If I did have some subdivisional history there and then sent this model over into Modo and then scaled it down, in most cases it's down, to the real world scale that I'm going to require it to be, and then sent it back into ZBrush, what you'll find is the subdivisional data that's in there, all the sculpting data, will be bloated out because it's still applying the same amount of deformation, you could say, to the character, even though it's significantly smaller, and because of that you're going to get bloated details. To avoid this problem, I will go ahead at this particular stage when there's no subdivisional history and then do the scaling right now. Another problem you can have with the scale as well is if you get the bloating, even if it's a small amount, you may find that your brush sizes are significantly bigger than they were before, because obviously the scale of the model has changed. Unfortunately, ZBrush doesn't have an automatic way of adapting to this. So it's best that that you work from the correct scale as early as possible. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to send this over into Modo using GoZ, and then I'll see you in there. Once we're in Modo, all we need to do now is scale it to the right scale. Now you'll notice that I've got this measurement here showing us the measurement, and this can be turned on by going to the properties, display, and then clicking on add dimensions, and you can see it shows you how high the character is. At the moment it's 7.96 meters tall, which is way too big, and we want it to be around about 1.73 meters, which is a 5'7" character. So if you want to be really accurate, you can go into Google and you can type in feet to meters, and then you'll get this conversion coming up, and I've typed in 5'7". That equals 1.73 meters, so I can just copy this value, go back into Modo, and from the modeling tab at the top here, you're in the basic tool set on the left. You click on snaps and positions and then activate the absolute scaling. From here it should say the same scale height as what you can see in here, the dimensions. If it doesn't, just click on the grab size, then select all of this and then Control and V on PC to paste it. Just have one space and then press M for meters. Once you've done that, you can then click on Uniform Scale. If you want to see the difference between the two, which is what I'm going to do right now, I'm just going to duplicate this, and then I'm going to click on Uniform Scale. I've done this so you can see the difference between the two, between the scale that it was in ZBrush and the scale that it should be for Modo. So now I've done that, that's just move this larger one to the side, just so you can see the difference here. And it's this difference that can cause a lot of problems if you are going from this size down to this size and then expecting to send it back into ZBrush and everything working fine. It will not be the case, especially if you've got multiple subdivisional sculpting layers. It will cause havoc. So that's why it's best to do it at this particular stage. You can see there's a clear difference. So I'm going to delete this. The next thing that I want to do is I want to center it into world space. So to do this, what you do is you're going to go into any of the component modes, polygons, edges or vertices. We're still in the modeling tab from the basic tool set. You can see there. You click on center selected and all. That's providing you've got your mesh selected, of course. There we go. I now want to go to the right view, so I'm going to just press the control and space, and you can see this pop-up menu. I'm going to select right, and then from the item I want to make sure the item's selected. I'm going to go to the edit menu center bounding box, and I'm going to select bottom. Now when I press the W key, it's going to be right at the feet, and I'll explain more later on why I've put it at the feet. There we go. I'm more concentrating on where the toes are than where the base of the foot is itself, because it's all going to be resculpted over anyway later on. But for the most part, it's exactly where I want it to be. That's good. Now what I want to do, I just want to go into their right hand side here for the properties of that and just zero everything off so you can see everything zeroed off. Okay. If you want to check that the scale is right and you want to kind of see how it is with the rigging, then you can go ahead and do something very basic to this right now. For me, if I was building a rig from scratch, I wouldn't bother with that step, but because I'm using an automated setup, which is using a kit from Modo, which is called the ACS Kit 2, I can quickly bring a bibed mesh into here, or a bibed character, so that I can check the scale. And this is something that I'm going to be doing later on anyway, but I'll just quickly show you this. So if I go into the setup here, press the shift and the A, it will bring it closer onto the screen here. And then I go to the bottom here where it says ACS. Obviously you have to purchase the kit for this to get this. Go to presets, and then from the ACS assembles I can just double click on the bibed, and it'll bring a bibed skeleton into there. And as you can see, it's pretty much already there already as far as the scale is concerned. But of course we can go into here and click on this little tiny button here, and this is where we can paste in those values that we had earlier on. So I'm going to select these, paste them in, click OK, and now you can see that it's set the scale up just perfect for us. But of course I'm not going to be doing any rigging at this particular stage. So what I would do is I would now send this back into ZBrush, but I won't try to update the model that's already in there because it can cause issues with scaling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this mesh woman in this particular case, and then go Z it over. Okay, so now that it's go Z it over, ZBrush has accepted this scale as the basic scale from the initial stage, and it's not going to affect the size of the brush, and it's not going to affect anything else regarding the subdivisional history or anything like that. This is the base level in which we can really start to work on now for getting the extra details into the mesh as far as anatomy goes anyway. I won't go ahead and add too much detail at this particular stage. What I'll be concentrating on at this stage is to get some real core anatomical landmarks in place. Areas that I feel that I want to come out in the base geometry when I finally build it. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this sculpt at a higher level and then send it over into Modo to do retopology on it. So the sort of things I'll be looking out for is like the deltoids, where the breasts are like this. I'll be thinking along these lines where I would have natural edge flow going. Okay, so these are the kind of things I'm thinking about, having proper edge loops and places of articulation. I would make sure that I've definitely got this going on in the topology. These are areas that they must have good clean geometry that's going to deform well. Quite obvious here, but I'm just sort of like striking through them. These are areas that I really have to have clean geometry, and obviously because they're going to be deformed, and each finger as well. So what I would do is I would then go ahead to the next stage and sculpt in some details, and I will see you in the next video where you can see me sculpting some of those details, and then I will take it to the next stage of retopology.